Africa Business News, proudly sponsored by EY.
Africa, it is huge, it is diverse, and its business landscape fascinating and dynamic. And that's our business here on your favorite weekly African business stop. We have Bonnie Tunya joining us from Nairobi, Kenya, and Esther Aoyin is in Lagos, Nigeria, covering West Africa for us. Christine Mundwa chats to us in Johannesburg. My name is Victor Homoiswan, and this is the Africa Business News. Bonnie, perhaps you do, perhaps you don't have your selfie with US President Barack Obama from his recent visit to East Africa and the first to his ancestral home as president. Please share with us some of your highlights from the visit, perhaps describing the mood among the Kenyans in general and the business community in particular.
Well, Victor, I didn't get a chance for a selfie. Security was too tight. They would not let me. But yes, there was jubilation all across the country as US President Barack Obama's Air Force One jet touched down at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. A first for a sitting president of America. Yes, Obama was received by his sister Alma Obama, who they drove off together, a rare show of affection, if you may. But as far as business is concerned, that is where we had the real winners. Now, Kenya signed several pacts with the U.S. during the talks between U.S. President Barack Obama and Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta, signaling a deepening of bilateral relations in trade and investment, Victor. And addressing a joint press conference, President Obama said discussions on the prospects of the reintroduction of direct flights between the two countries were ongoing. However, the two countries also came up with an action plan that will see increased financial support for the military, judiciary and the police in Kenya. It also expects that the Kenyan military will receive counter-terrorism aid under the peacekeeping operations program through the Partnership for Regional East Africa Counter-Terrorism Unit. Also, the bilateral talks also centered on the instability of the region because of the current conflicts in South Sudan and Burundi, with President Obama calling on the warring South Sudanese parties to hasten the signing of peace agreements between the warring factions. Now, the question of corruption also came up, and it formed a key part of their discussion, actually, with President Obama saying he was happy with Kenya's progress on fighting corruption. He added that the U.S. had signed a joint commitment with Kenya in order to what he called increased transparency and accountability between the two countries.
President Obama pledged $1 billion for entrepreneurship, among other things, but one headline still stood out for me because the drive to increase cleaner energy across Africa is paramount. General Electric looking to build a 100-megawatt power plant. It is not another geothermal initiative, of course, but cleaner energy nonetheless.
Right, 1,000 megawatts wind power farm will be built in Kajiado County following that particular partnership by the General Electric Africa and Kipeto Energy Limited in a 15-year service agreement that is worth $155 million with funding by Overseas Private Investment Corporation's OPIC, which is the U.S. government's development finance institution and part of the Power Africa initiative. Now, this particular project will also see GE provide all equipment needed, including the 60 GE 1.7 to 103 wind turbines. Kipeto Energy Limited, on the other hand, will not undertake the project alone, but will also do with shareholders. Those include the African Infrastructure Investment Managers, Craft Skills Wind Energy International Finance Corporation, and the Maasai community of Kipeto. You see, the wind farm is among the other projects that General Electric has committed to invest in over the last year already. Now, GE has an existing just about US dollars 2.5 billion worth of booked orders across Africa in the last year alone, following a GE selection back in February to partner with a wide-scale infrastructure modernization program that is aimed at transforming 98 hospitals across the 47 counties in Kenya.
Burundi was recovering from the outcome of the elections, whose results it seems nobody cares to recognize except for President Pierre Nkurunziza, of course.
The situation in Burundi is a sad one, isn't it? I mean, it's President Pierre Nkurunziza has indeed won a controversial third term, taking nearly 70% of the vote according to provisional results from the country's electoral commission. We must remember that this particular results have been contested. The African Union has pulled off their observers, saying the elections were not credible. Now, opposition leader Agathon Rwasa won only 19% of the vote after his name was left out of the ballot paper despite a boycott. At least 70% of the people have been killed since 70 people rather have been killed since the violence struck out after Nkurunziza announced in April that he will be running for a third term. Now, the government accusations and they continue, and counter accusations with opposition provoking violent protests. Opponents say that his bid was illegal due to a limit of 2 terms in the constitution, and official results are expected at the end of the week. This week, it will be no surprise to anyone. But so far, we do have reports that the turnout was more than 73%, higher than many analysts predicted, obviously because of the controversy that was surrounding this particular vote. Although it was significantly lower in the capital, Bujumbura, where most of the protests have been heard, the situation in Burundi remains to be dire.
Asante sana Bonitunya, coming to us from Nairobi, Kenya. Up next is Christine Mundo to look at some of the stories from Southern Africa. Welcome back. We're still on Africa Business News, and in our Johannesburg studio is Christine Mundo. Before we talk about the South African Reserve Bank with a preemptive interest rate hike of 25 basis points, Christine is going to tell me more about Anglo American shedding more jobs. Christine?
So we understand that Anglo intends to cut about 1/3 of its global workforce. This is about some 54,000 jobs. They're going to be doing this by selling off about 15 mines and excising about 6,000 office jobs. Now, you know, it's interesting because I know that in the recent days I've been on 2 stories where the story is quite the opposite. Everybody else is, you know, shedding jobs and closing down various operations due to that weak global commodity price. But here in South Africa, for instance, you have the likes of Tom Albanese, the former Rio Tinto boss, who's in town opening a new mine, a zinc mine in the Northern Cape. You've also got investors from the UK pouring money into South Africa's platinum belt. So it's all very interesting, the story. But, you know, talking about Tom Albanese, he actually went on to say that, you know, the China boom was sort of a once-in-a-century type of a boom. Yes, it may be waning off, but China's growth story is still particularly strong. So there are some bulls that still are out there in terms of the mining industry. Albanese also going on to say that he's never known the industry to particularly not follow a pattern that isn't rise and fall.
What do you make of the decision by the South African Reserve Bank to hike interest rates, though?
Well, you know, this is preemptive, as you rightly said in your intro, widely expected. And of course, those that would be hurt the most are those that are in debt because, of course, the banks will then go on to increase their prime lending as well as variable mortgages by the same magnitude, and that would take us up to about 9.5% every year. Interestingly enough, you know, people should remember that this is part of, you know, sort of a longer process to normalize the monetary policy over time, and some analysts are going as far as saying that we could potentially see the next hike, which could be even a more significant hike in September, depending on what happens with flows, what happens with the rand, as well as what happens with the Fed. But for the most part, people anticipate a 25%, another 25%, 25 basis points rather in September.
That was Christine Mundo. Next up, Esther Awoyin is in Lagos to chat to us about West Africa. Stay tuned. Esther, Nigerian President Buhari was in the U.S. recently, but in the face of growing terror attacks by Boko Haram, he still came back home without the backing he had hoped for. What did he want from the U.S. and why did he fail to get it?
According to the U.S. government, an act known as the Leahy Act prevented from selling arms to countries with human rights abuse records. Now, Victor, recall that just a few months ago, Amnesty International published a report which indicted the Nigerian military of human rights abuses against civilians in its bid to conquer Boko Haram. Now, while the military denied it, President Buhari promised to investigate the allegations, but unfortunately not much has emerged from that investigation. Now, in response to President Obama's stance on arms sales to Nigeria, President Buhari says Nigeria was being denied this over what he called so-called human rights violations and unproven allegations. Well, he also said the blanket application of the Leahy Law will deny Nigeria access to appropriate strategic weapons to help it fight the war against terrorism in Nigeria, and he therefore appealed to both the White House and the U.S. Congress to find a way around the law and supply Nigerian troops with high-tech weapons under a deal with minimal strings.
However, it's not all doom and gloom, because the World Bank is among some of the organizations willing to spend over $2 billion to restore the northeastern parts of Nigeria following the Boko Haram insurgents over the past couple of years.
Well, absolutely, Victor. The international lender says it will spend $2.1 billion on rebuilding the northeastern part of Nigeria ravaged by the Boko Haram insurgency in the last 6 years. Now, representatives of the World Bank stated this in Washington recently at a meeting attended by President Buhari, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as the World Health Organization. Now, apart from the financial assistance, President Buhari also wants priority to be given to the resettlement of the over 1 million internally displaced persons. According to the presidency, President Buhari wants the World Bank to send a team that would work with a team from the federal government here so that a proper assessment of needs could be done. Meanwhile, the World Bank also says it will spend about $300 million on malaria immunization in Nigeria.
And finally, in Ghana, as the government approves the issuing of a $1.5 billion Eurobond, the European Union has lifted a 9-year ban on Ghanaian airlines that should offer some respite, if only in one sector, for a struggling economy.
Oh, absolutely, it will, Victor. Now, the lifting of the ban means that Ghanaian registered operators are now able to operate flights from the capital, Accra, to Europe and in between EU countries. Now, it also means that no Ghanaian air carrier is recorded on the EU Air Safety Operating Ban list. Now, in March 2006, the EU Air Safety Committee placed an operating ban on 2 Ghanaian registered air carriers, as the Meridian Airways and Airlift International, effectively banning any locally registered air carrier from operating in the European Union due largely to safety concerns. Now, meanwhile, the GCAA, following the lifting of the ban, has further suspended the issuance of licenses for offshore air operations. Now, this is because the Ghanaian authorities want operators to be based in the country so that they can properly supervise them and ensure that they meet all the necessary safety and regulatory requirements.
And in our trivia this week, Liberia celebrated its Independence Day on Sunday, West Africa's first democratic country, founded through the resettlement of about 15,000 freed slaves in 1847. Liberia is best known now for having had Africa's first woman-elected president in Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, or for the football legend turned politician George Weah. Since ridding itself of the Charles Taylor legacy, the country has worked very hard to attract investors, including ArcelorMittal and many others, into the budding oil sector. South Sudan also celebrates Martyrs' Day on July 30th, the same day on which Morocco and Western Sahara mark Throne Day. We're back with you next week with more Africa business news. We thank Esther Awine out of Lagos, Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi, and earlier on, Christine Mundwa in Johannesburg. Stay tuned to CNBC Africa. Until next week, adios.